Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be discussing the elements that are going to kind of come into play for this multi-day severe weather outbreak that is coming up this week. So let's first talk about tomorrow or Friday, March 14th. We have a moderate risk over the central United States um, placed. We have a moderate here from uh, in Iowa, Illinois, Southeast Iowa, Illinois, Eastern Missouri, Western Kentucky, Northwest Tennessee, and Northeast Arkansas. Tornado probabilities, there is a large 10 hatch region from Burlington, Iowa, down to the Meridian, Mississippi area. So it's a very big 10 hatched. I think this will probably go 15 at some point. 15 hatching would probably be somewhere in here once issued. Maybe extending a little bit more out this way and maybe a little bit further to the south as well. Um, we do also have that wind risk, which is the whole moderate pretty much. There's a hatch probability for all of Iowa, southwest Wisconsin, western Indiana, all of Illinois, um, northern Mississippi, eastern northeastern Arkansas, west Tennessee, west Kentucky, most of Missouri, uh, northeast Kansas, and eastern Nebraska. There's also potential for very large hail as well, extending from, again, areas along I-80, so like Walcott, Iowa, and Peoria in Illinois, down to northwest Mississippi there. So there's going to be potential for all significant severe weather hazards. See, Storm Prediction Center mentions a regional outbreak of severe weather, with tornadoes, several being strong, widespread wind gusts from 70 to 90, scattered hail up to baseball size as well. Um, we have kind of a couple facets for that, but let's go into day three. We'll look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook for this day. Um, large moderate risk from Huntsville, Alabama, into Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So that covers 86,000 square miles. And then we have an enhanced risk from Bowling Green, Kentucky, all the way to the Gulf Coast. So in areas in Louisiana and Florida. Atlanta's also in the enhanced, along with Nashville, Tennessee. So there's a hatching. So all the enhanced and moderate are hatched, which signifies potential for 2+ inch hail, 74 plus mile per hour wind gusts, and potential for EF2 plus tornadoes. Storm Prediction Center mentions potential for a particularly volatile scenario with destructive severe thunderstorms. Numerous significant tornadoes are possible, widespread damaging wind gusts, and scattered hail are the hazards that the Storm Prediction Center mentions. There is also a day 4 15% from Pennsylvania down to Florida. So overall, a very long sequence of severe weather is expected. Let's dive into the surface pattern right now. So right now we have moisture return coming from the Gulf of Mexico. We have low 60s dew points that are starting to move inland as warm air advection is kind of moving its way northward. We have 60s dews stockpiled um, along the Gulf Coast, and there's also other isolated areas in Arkansas, and there was an area in Missouri earlier that had 60s dew points as well. We have 50s dew points really. I'll do kind of 50s dew points here in yellow. So we have 50s dew points all the way up here in Missouri in this little splotch, but they're more widespread as you get into Illinois there. You can see they kind of just carry themselves down to the Gulf Coast, and we can kind of see that here using our surface analysis pattern. Um, so overall, a large swath of 50s dew points and some isolated 60s right now. This is kind of going to help um, uplift that potential. Here's 500 millibar. You can see a very strong trough out in the Western Pacific right now. There was not tornadoes, but there was actually there was a tornado yesterday in California along with the damaging wind gusts. And so troughs that do that are is usually a precursor for significant severe weather sequence. Now let's dive into kind of the synoptics of the event. We'll first start off with the NAM. So this is valid in a few hours here. And so here is tomorrow morning what the 500 millibar map could look like. Start to get a closed low centered near the Four Corners region in New Mexico with a speed max of 110 plus knots of mid-level wind shear, a lot of diffluence, the wind spreading aloft with height, and this very strong shortwave trough ready to eject into the Midwest. Here we are at midday. The speed max increases to 140 knots on the NAM, a very negatively tilted trough, um, and a closed low near in Kansas there. You can see a lot of diffluence aloft, which is going to cause very strong forcing over this general region here. Strong forcing means you're going to have storms that go up with it. As you can see here, the NAM moves that jet streak into um, Illinois and Missouri by the early evening, and then you can see that jet streak lifts off into kind of the central, into the upper Midwest, and then we have another trough that is more neutral to positively tilted that kind of results in the back end of things, and big time issues with this. A very strong shortwave materializes over the Tennessee Valley, and you see a speed max there of 90 knots with a speed max behind that of 115. So let's kind of go into some of the synoptics here. We'll start at 0Z. We see very strong 850 millibar winds, lots of warm air advection. We got 50 to 60 plus knots in a very large area here over the Midwest. Got very cold 500 millibar temperatures at negative 18 degrees Celsius there. That's going to help really um, cool your temperature profile aloft. As we see here, look at some forecast soundings there in eastern Missouri. Once this loads, it's taking a little bit there. Come on. While that loads, we'll go into the graphics for my Illinois people. So, I know I have a lot of people on the channel that watch this from Illinois. So here's your look at the severe risk. This is your level 2 out of 5 slight risk right here, level 3 out of 5 enhanced right here, and level 4 out of 5 moderate right here. So your big cities that are going to be in that slight risk, the whole Chicago metro, Rockford, and DeKalb. That enhanced risk includes Kankakee, LaSalle, Peru, and the Quad Cities. Um, the moderate includes pretty much everywhere else in the state. So the St. Louis Metro, Quincy, Galesburg, Peoria, Bloomington, Champaign, Mount Vernon, Carbondale, and Marion. So those places are all included in the moderate risk. You can see the tornado probabilities. We have a 2% across northeastern Illinois and a 5% surrounding that. And then a 10 hatched from Moline, Iowa down, or Illinois down to where it ends further south. Wind probabilities are the same as that moderate risk. We do have a 30 hatched hail threat from areas near Springfield westward to the border and down to Marion, Carbondale, and Cairo down in southern Illinois. Okay, that box sounding loaded. So you can see your thermodynamics above around 500 millibars, you're cold. On average, you are at 500 millibar, you're around negative 17 degrees Celsius, which is very cold. Um, Overall, we can kind of dissect this profile. You have a very enlarged topograph. This is going to help um, really increase the tornado risk. We have 60 knot storm motions, which are 70 mph. So storms are going to be flying. Overall, thermodynamics are pretty strong. 1,000 surface-based cape, 1,000 mixed layer cape. Lapse rates are very steep. That's just a calculation of the temperature decreasing in height. Um, so overall, very favorable profile for large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes. Very significant damaging winds are possible. We got that inverted V profile toward the surface, which is going to dry stuff out for more compact Boeing segments. Um, so really, all severe hazards are going to be a possibility there. Now we can dive more into this. The NAM kind of has a line of storms that kind of forms around 4 p.m. in eastern Kansas and western Missouri. Also, going into that, we do have a fire risk with this from areas in Michigan and Indiana all the way to New Mexico. And there's a critical fire risk for Kansas City, which is really rare, and an extreme risk all the way into southwest Missouri. So that's something to take note of. Some of these initial thunderstorms could be fire starters. So that's kind of a rare thing this far to the east. Taking a sounding in front of these storms, you can see that you have a very dry surface, um, very steep low of elapse rate. So this is going to be just significant damaging wind producing, maybe some tornadoes if you can get enough moisture there. Overnight, is going to be something to watch. There's probably going to be a big time tornado threat with that line of storms over eastern Iowa, central Illinois, but also we could see some discrete supercells fire either in or ahead of the line in this general area and points further to the south um, overnight. Why is this the case? Well, let's first start off with the fact that there's a surface trough slash confluence band access modeled here on the NAM and other models. Um, this is going to help force your storms. Looking at 500 millibar, kind of overlaying it, you have an embedded shortwave that is kind of right here, and there's another one right here. The one that's over here is a lot stronger, as noted by the king. So these two embedded shortwaves will have potential to form storms. This one in Arkansas will potentially form storms here. The one in Missouri would form storms here. These would be more discrete storms and probably more long tracking storms. Um, Here we go with the wind profile. And so this is kind of the area where you would have those discrete storms that form. And if we do get a few discrete supercells that form, they're probably going to be quite intense. You have decent thermodynamics with a McSlayer Cape of 1500 and very cold 500 millibar temperatures aloft. One problem is you do have a lot of or a lot of stability at around 850 millibars, but that's pretty typical for overnight hours. You're going to get a lot of warm air advection from the Gulf of Mexico and areas further to the south, so that'll kind of help stabilize things. Along with that, you have strong forcing. Your lapse rates are pretty good, 6 for the low levels, which isn't great, but for being at 10 o'clock at night, that's pretty strong. And then 8, almost 8 in the low levels or mid levels. Your hodograph, very curved and streamwise. Streamwise is basically if you kind of take a point here, that's just a perfect circle. Is pretty much what you're looking for. Um, Very strong storm relative velocity values, which is the spin around 600 meters per second squared. Um, a lot of upper level venting as well, so you're going to have more visible storms as well with these. This threat could even be further south as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, Moving into kind of what the NAM has for Saturday across portions of Dixie Alley, we can see very strong thermodynamic profiles there with an 800 or 987 millibar low in northern Mississippi. We take a box sounding there on the NAM in Mississippi in general. A volatile parameter space exists on the NAM for Dixie standards and really in general. Lots of instability there. A very enlarged hodograph, which means your wind shear is really strong. Steep lapse rates, 8 Celsius per kilometer for Dixie is almost unheard of for mid-level lapse rates. And you can see that little remnant EML as well right here. Um, Thermodynamics are pretty good, so you're gonna have to watch out for a large-scale tornado event, probably a pretty high-end one. Um, it's gonna last into the evening. We'll probably see a line of supercells kind of in the Alabama region. Um, Generally, just looking at the flow of 500 millibar chart, you can see um, just very strong wind shear across a very large area. Um, we'll look at the NAM also for Saturday a little bit here, and then we'll kind of dive back in. I'm not going to spend too long, or Sunday, I'm not going to spend too long talking about Sunday because the other days are more important at the moment. But the NAM does show upper 50s dew points reaching all the way into New York there, 60s dew points into the Carolinas and Virginia. This is going to result in light destabilization. Uh, so over there. Uh, That light destabilization might be a little bit of a NAM artifact there. I'm not 100% sure, but you look at the GFS here. The GFS has not too much destabilization. Some. You're not going to need too much to produce severe storms in this instance. Like you have a very enlarged photograph, but this isn't terrible for a severe weather event in the Mid-Atlantic. You'll probably see maybe this get upgraded to an enhanced risk a day of. Now, kind of going on, we'll look at the HRRR now. It has a similar scenario to the NAM. You get that big time shortwave to just eject in to the Midwest overnight, resulting in very strongly forced area down here and a more subtly forced area down here. The HRRR also has something interesting as well. Once you get toward about 6Z, there's another secondary area of a shortwave that kind of spurts out in here. There could be a conditional significant tornado risk in here overnight, more in here overnight on Friday, which isn't being talked about that much. First, though, let's look into that severe risk in the Midwest. Storms fire 21 Zulu time, and they kind of quickly go up in Iowa there. Ahead of those storms, I do think your dew points are going to be a lot higher than what the HRRR has. HRRR has a mixing bias, which means it takes away a lot more dew points than it should. Overall, storms rapidly go up around 0Z. I think it might be a little bit quicker for some of these Missouri storms, but here is the profile ahead of it that the HRRR thinks is going to happen. I think the surface temperatures are probably going to be more in the 60s with your dew points in the upper 50s, which would cause this warm nose to be eliminated. Anyway, a very enlarged totograph, steep lapse rates, and overall decent stability considering the fact that you have 18-degree dew point spreads. Looks like this line really ramps up on the HRRR toward 8 p.m. in eastern Missouri, crossing into Illinois. And that generally makes sense. You're going to have more moisture get pumped up and kind of into this line at this point, taking a sounding ahead of the line when there's a lot more UH. And you can see that the overall environment is quite favorable at this point. Your low voltage shear gets a lot stronger. Your instability values get a little bit better at some instances. You have more moisture that comes in there. So overall, pretty impressive setup taking place. Overnight, the HRRR does initiate a few supercells in kind of embedded in the line kind of near St. Louis, and these kind of travel into eastern or in the central Illinois and have a pretty intense environment to work with there. And then we see that stuff kind of dissipate. We'll talk about further south as well in Mississippi. You see storms start to fire, 7Z, which is past midnight. Some of these get kind of strong there on the HRRR. Looking at the environment that is modeled with these storms, you can see a little bit. Look, play a little sounding here. You can see the environment model in the HRRR does showcase a lot of low-level stability, resulting in a little bit of some inhibition. But you have a very enlarged hodograph, pretty circle hodograph there. A lot of venting aloft, which could keep stuff a little bit less messy. And then you have steep mid-level lapse rates and overall strong wind shear. So you're going to have a threat for tornadoes, maybe definitely probably strong tornadoes as well down here. It's just a little bit more conditional on storm development. And see morning of in Dixie on Saturday based off the HRRR solution. You get that similar um, kind of mode to what you have overnight. You might see some tornadoes with these storms, probably will. Maybe some stronger ones. Oh, that is a sounding at 15Z in the morning. So yeah, you probably will see some strong tornadoes with those storms if they can orient themselves right. You already have moderate instability in place, strong steep lapse rates, and a big time photograph. So overall, no bueno. Um, you can see here the HRRR really starts to jack things up toward 16Z and then even 17Z with a band of supercells forming from northern Mississippi down further south. Placement of this is going to change for sure, but just overall, pretty big time look for a large scale tornado outbreak over Dixie Alley. You can see that with the 500 millibar chart. Here we are. Here is the UH tracks, and you can see, I'll go to 0 3. You can see there's a wide area of severe weather expected, really from Minnesota, Iowa, down all the way into kind of here. So there's going to be a large area impacted with this, and we're going to have kind of two highlighted zones of higher end potential. One in here, most likely, and then another one in here, most likely. So that's big time right there. Um, Here is a similar look based on the NAM 3 kilometer. And there you go. So the NAM 3 kilometer really paintballs this general region in here and this general region in here. So there's going to be a lot to kind of unpack with this setup. Um, we'll look at the NAM 3K as well for the Dixie event. You can see kind of here you start to get storms to fire in the early afternoon. Arkansas kind of goes up midday. The environment ahead of those storms not great. You can see there's not much instability in place yet. Um, but once we get toward that 3 o'clock time frame, you have a ton of instability just coming right off the Gulf. If you take a sounding from northern Louisiana into Mississippi, there you can see the environment is ripe for severe weather. A big, large photograph, strong instability, resulting in and steep lapse rates again, resulting in that strong instability. Um, a bit of a warm nose here. I'm not sure if this is actually going to happen or if this is again a NAM artifact, but that's big time. And just an overall potent environment. You can kind of see that resulting in a strong storms there in that Mississippi region. Um, I do think you're going to get storms further south than what the NAM 3K shows, and you can see that in the FV3. Where is it? FV3 shows that scenario where you do have more widespread thunderstorms further to the south as well there. Um, so we're probably gonna have a large scale severe weather event with this one. Areas into the Ohio Valley could also see severe weather. FV3 doesn't really have much, and I do think that threat is very conditional up there. Why would that threat be conditional? Well, let's take a look at the GFS here. 500 millibar, you don't really have, you have a little bit of forcing from the shortwave coming in, but you have a lot of what we call subsidence. There's a wave that's going to be lifting out from the early morning hours that you can see is already in kind of the Michigan, um, kind of the Wisconsin, Michigan area. You have another wave coming in, but I think what that's going to do is it's just going to put cold air into that area. You know, you already have those storms that are going to go up along that low pressure there in Mississippi. That's just going to bring in a lot of cold air, I think. So that Ohio threat is really conditional. It's going to really depend on a lot of factors. Um, Seems like a lot of models want the severe threat to really be from Kentucky southward, kind of in here, the more high end one. The more high end one would probably exist more so in here. So we'll kind of watch. We'll watch areas along the Ohio Valley, but I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue for more high-end severe thunderstorms. Maybe maybe some stronger storms, but I don't think that you're going to get too much storms up there in general. That's going to do it for this one. I may go live at some point and do a forecasting stream or model stream later tonight. Um, I am going to be storm chasing Friday, so you're going to see some sort of video with that. Not sure where my target is yet. I kind of have two right now. I'll put this out to hour 84 so you can get a little better view. But I have one target that's kind of southeast Iowa, northeast Missouri, west Illinois here. I have another one where I would just sit at my house in central Illinois here, kind of. And then I have another one near St. Louis extending into southern Illinois. And I'm really between 1 and 3 right now. You can follow my Twitter and get updates there on what I actually end up doing. But I will be out chasing tomorrow. So you have that. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you stay safe during this severe weather sequence. And we'll see you in the next one.